Imagine checking your partner's phone for like the 100th time today.
Yeah, that frantic scroll.
Right, exactly. Your brain is just desperately looking for safety, trying to make sure the other shoe isn't going to drop. But what if that very act, that frantic search for reassurance, is exactly what's keeping your nervous system trapped in a constant state of trauma?
It's a vicious cycle, really.
It totally is.
Yeah.
Today we are talking directly to you, the listener, about a really heavy, but I mean an incredibly important reality. We're talking about navigating life after betrayal and infidelity.
And we are definitely putting aside those hollow cliches.
Oh, absolutely. No generic advice to just, give it time. Instead, we're looking at this really fascinating educational transcript focused on a concept called human flourishing. And our mission for this deep dive is to move entirely past the abstract. We want to zero in on the actionable daily habits that actually foster healing and personal growth when, your world has just been shattered.
It is such a critical shift in perspective. Because when you are in the immediate aftermath of a betrayal, the standard advice you hear often feels, well, it feels dismissive.
Yeah, super dismissive, like just focus on yourself.
Right, exactly. Platitudes do not give you a roadmap. But what the material we're analyzing today provides is a highly practical framework. It breaks down what recovery actually looks like on a behavioral level, rather than just telling you to somehow feel better.
Which is so refreshing.
Yeah.
But let's unpack the core concept right away, because honestly, the phrase human flourishing in the context of infidelity can sound
jarring.
Yeah, really jarring. When you're dealing with broken trust or shame or just the sheer exhaustion of a betrayal, hearing about flourishing might feel like it belongs in a different universe. It sounds almost impossibly out of reach.
It's completely understandable to feel a strong resistance to that word. I mean, if you're struggling simply to get out of bed in the morning, the idea of flourishing sounds like a cruel joke.
Yeah.
But the source material redefines the term in a way that is deeply grounded. Flourishing does not mean your life has suddenly become perfect, or that you're magically free from pain. It simply means that the pain doesn't have to be the final defining characteristic of your life. It's a trajectory, not a finished state.
It's not an eraser for the past. I kept coming back to this analogy while we were going through the notes for this. If betrayal is an earthquake that completely levels your house, flourishing isn't standing in the rubble, closing your eyes and pretending the earthquake didn't happen.
Right.
It's the daily, sometimes grueling habit of just like picking up bricks to build something new.
That visual captures the mechanism of recovery perfectly because picking up a brick is an action.
Yeah, it takes effort.
It requires a deliberate choice. You're acknowledging the reality of the ruin while insisting on building a future. But to understand how to build those daily habits, we first have to clarify what direction we're aiming for. The material makes a really sharp distinction right up front between the idea of flourishing and the idea of happiness.
Culturally, we just use those words interchangeably.
All the time.
But understanding the difference seems like the key to surviving the initial shock. The definition we're working with here says that flourishing means growing like emotionally, mentally, spiritually, relationally, personally, whereas happiness is just tied to how you feel in a specific, fleeting moment.
And the underlying psychology there is vital. Happiness is a transient dopamine response based on immediate circumstances.
Like eating a good piece of cake.
Exactly. You eat a great meal or watch a funny movie, you feel a spike of happiness. But flourishing is the overall architecture of your life. You might not feel a drop of happiness while you are grieving a profound betrayal.
No, you'd probably feel awful.
You might feel devastated, enraged, or just entirely numb. But even inside that intense grief, you can still execute choices that move you toward healing, truth, and stability. You can flourish while you are in pain.
Which is a huge paradigm shift. But I have to be honest here. If this happened to me, I wouldn't want to, quote-unquote, build a new house. I wouldn't care about my long-term trajectory. I just want my old life back.
Of course.
The idea of completely rebuilding just sounds exhausting. I'd imagine a lot of listeners thinking, isn't returning to normal the ultimate goal here?
Well, the brain is actually hardwired to want exactly that. After a severe trauma, the amygdala, which is your brain's threat detection center, is on high alert.
Right.
It categorizes the current moment as dangerous, and it categorizes the before as safe. So neurologically, you experience this profound craving to return to the before. But going back to normal is actually a dangerous myth.
Because nostalgia kind of tricks the brain.
Exactly. Nostalgia tricks the brain into ignoring the reality of what that normal actually looked like.
Because the normal is what eventually led to the earthquake in the first place.
Precisely. Returning to the old relationship dynamics often means returning to the exact vulnerabilities that existed before the crisis hit.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
We're talking about poor communication patterns, emotional distance, unspoken resentments, or, weak boundaries that were just normalized over years. The foundation of the old house was likely already compromised. So, true flourishing means creating something fundamentally healthier. It demands moving forward with greater wisdom rather than retreating into a flawed past.
So, practically speaking then, what does moving forward look like? From the sources, it seems to depend heavily on the path you choose, right? Like if a couple chooses to stay together and attempt to rebuild,
Yeah.
flourishing requires radical honesty.
Radical
Yeah,
honesty.
it means creating a totally new dynamic built on transparency and emotional safety. But, and this is heavily emphasized in the text, you do not have to stay together to heal.
That is a non-negotiable truth in this framework. Flourishing doesn't demand that a broken relationship be salvaged at any cost. For someone who chooses to leave, picking up those bricks looks entirely different.
What does that look like?
It involves rebuilding personal confidence, rediscovering your autonomy, enforcing rigid, healthy boundaries, and learning the incredibly difficult skill of trusting your own judgment again.
But, you can't even begin to confront those massive relationship dynamics, whether you're staying or leaving, if your hands are physically shaking.
Right.
Like, if your nervous system is in a state of constant panic, you can't do the heavy lifting of processing betrayal, which really brings us to the very first actionable phase of this journey, stabilizing your own mind and body.
And the physiology of betrayal is something we so often overlook.
We really do.
We treat the trauma as if it's purely a philosophical or an emotional problem. But betrayal registers in the human brain along the exact same neural pathways as physical pain.
That is wild.
When trust is shattered, your body enters a sustained fight-or-flight response. Your cortisol levels spike, your adrenaline surges, and your body is literally bracing for another attack.
It's a full system shock. The material lists the physical fallout so clearly. I mean, we're talking sleep disorders, complete loss of appetite, or on the flip side, compulsive overeating.
Chronic exhaustion.
Yeah, chronic exhaustion, and an inability to concentrate on even the most simple tasks. It's not just being sad. Your body is physically keeping the score. It's like trying to run an emotional marathon while starving yourself and wearing a lead vest.
That's exactly what it feels like. Which is why implementing physical habits isn't just generic wellness advice. It is a biological necessity. You cannot outthink a dysregulated nervous system. Reclaiming yourself has to start with the most fundamental interventions.
Like what?
It means prioritizing sleep hygiene because lack of sleep drastically exacerbates threat detection. It means forcing yourself to eat nutrient-dense food to stabilize your blood sugar, which directly impacts your mood. And it means engaging in physical movement.
Not to get in shape, right?
No, not to get in shape, to literally process and burn off the excess cortisol that is just flooding your system.
When you put it like that, eating a piece of toast or taking a walk around the block isn't just a chore, it's a neurological intervention.
It is.
But, on a Tuesday morning when you're just paralyzed by grief, even making that piece of toast can feel like climbing Mount Everest.
It absolutely can. The exhaustion is profound. And this is where the material introduces the habit of dedicated quiet time, whether that's journaling, prayer, or simple mindfulness. When you've been betrayed, your thoughts become this tangled, chaotic mess of why and how.
It's constantly looping.
Exactly. Journaling isn't just about recording your day. It's a way to externalize the chaos. Getting the thoughts out of your head and onto paper slows down the rumination cycle.
It stops the thoughts from just echoing endlessly in your own skull. And the text makes a really crucial point here about the habit of seeking outside help. Medical care, professional counseling, finding a community. Flourishing basically begins the moment you look at the sheer weight of the rubble and admit, I actually can't carry all of this by myself.
Seeking help is the active rejection of isolation. Trauma thrives in secrecy. It thrives in isolation. Admitting you need a therapist or a support group is a highly actionable habit of strength, not a weakness.
Right.
Once you start stabilizing that physical and emotional baseline, once you get a handle on the cortisol and the exhaustion, you suddenly have a fraction more energy to look outward. You can begin to evaluate your environment, your sense of purpose, and the people you are allowing into your space.
And that evaluation phase is intense. Because one of the most insidious effects of infidelity is how it just consumes your entire identity. The betrayal becomes the very first thought you have when you wake up and the very last thought before you fall asleep.
It really does.
It becomes the only lens through which you view the world.
The brain fixates on the trauma because it's trying to solve a puzzle. It thinks if it just analyzes the betrayal from every possible angle, it can figure out how to prevent it from ever happening again.
Oh,
But that hyperfixation robs you of your broader identity. A core part of healing is reminding your brain that you are more than what happened to you.
Which is why the material calls out the necessity of reconnecting with the parts of yourself that have been completely neglected because of the pain. Hobbies, career ambitions, creative outlets. Returning to those things isn't just a distraction, is it?
Not at all. It's the active practice of breaking the cycle. You're proving to your brain that other safe, meaningful things still exist in your life.
And as you reclaim that broader meaning, you also have to conduct a serious audit of your social circle. Humans are biologically wired for connection, but after a profound betrayal, the quality of those connections will entirely dictate the pace of your healing.
Yes, the people around you matter immensely.
The text asks a really pointed question that I want to pose directly to you, the listener. Take a hard look at the people around you right now. Are they actually helping you heal? Or are they punishing you for your choices? Are they dismissing your pain by telling you to, just get over it? Are they manipulating the situation?
It's an incredibly difficult audit to perform because you might realize some long-standing friendships are actually detrimental to your recovery. Healthy relationships don't require perfection, but they unconditionally require respect, empathy, responsibility, and strong boundaries.
Let's dive deep into boundaries, actually, because the material ties boundaries directly to character and integrity. And it demands high character from both partners. It outlines explicitly what flourishing looks like when it comes to accountability, starting with the unfaithful partner.
For the unfaithful partner, the concept of character requires a total paradigm shift. Simply saying, "I'm sorry," is entirely insufficient.
Yeah, words are cheap at that point.
Exactly. An apology is just words. Character is demonstrated through observable, predictable behavior change over a long period of time. It means taking absolute responsibility. It means answering the hard, painful questions without getting defensive, truly understanding the depth of the collateral damage, and dismantling the hidden behaviors that facilitated the betrayal in the first place.
Because without truth, there is no trust. And without accountability, there is absolutely no emotional safety.
Right.
But what about the betrayed partner? What does character look like for them in this framework?
For the betrayed partner, character is rooted in the refusal to abandon yourself. Trauma often conditions people to shrink, to stay quiet, just to keep the peace.
Just to smooth things over.
Yes. Flourishing requires the daily, muscular habit of self-advocacy. It means setting boundaries based on your actual needs and your own wisdom, not based on the external pressure to resolve the conflict quickly.
So it's actively fighting against that people-pleasing instinct.
Absolutely.
Now, all of these concepts, boundaries, truth, self-advocacy, regulating your nervous system, they form a beautiful theoretical framework. But I really want to bring this down to the absolute ground level for our listener. Let's talk about the micro-habits. What does this actually look like on a random Tuesday when you are just bone-tired and flourishing is the last thing on your mind?
The focus on micro-habits is where the source material is most valuable, I think. It shatters the illusion that time alone heals all wounds.
Time doesn't heal anything.
No, it's what you do with the time that determines your recovery. Relationships and individuals can flourish after infidelity, but it demands granular daily participation.
Right, a process isn't one giant leap. It's a million tiny steps. So on that random Tuesday, flourishing might look like initiating one difficult, honest conversation instead of just, sweeping an issue under the rug.
Or it might look like setting one firm boundary and refusing to negotiate it. It could be the act of offering an apology without tacking a single excuse or justification onto the end of it.
Right. And there's one specific micro-habit discussed in the material that we really need to linger on, because I think it captures the psychology of this entire deep dive perfectly. The text says that flourishing can look like choosing not to check a phone for the 100th time.
That is a profoundly observant example. To understand why that single action is so significant, we have to look at the mechanics of hypervigilance.
Okay, let's break that down.
When your trust is shattered, your brain becomes obsessed with threat detection. It wants to monitor everything to ensure you are never blindsided again.
So you grab the phone, you're looking for evidence, you're looking for reassurance, basically just constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop.
But here is the trap. Checking the phone is a craving for safety, but the act itself spikes your adrenaline.
Wait, really?
Yes. Every time you pick up the device to play detective, you are signaling to your nervous system that a threat is imminent. You are actively keeping yourself in a state of high alert. You aren't relieving the anxiety, you are reinforcing the anxiety loop.
It's incredible to think about it that way. The very thing you're doing to try and feel safe is what's keeping you traumatized. So, choosing not to check the phone isn't actually about whether you trust your partner or not.
Exactly. It's an act of self-regulation. Choosing not to check is a micro habit of declaring, I am going to tolerate this temporary feeling of uncertainty because I deserve a calm nervous system. It is taking the power away from the external trigger and putting it back into your own hands.
I deserve peace, whether this relationship survives or not. That reframe changes everything. You are choosing your own biological and mental health over the compulsion to investigate.
And every single time you interrupt that anxiety loop, you are rewiring your brain. You are laying down a new neural pathway. A micro habit is a tiny, localized victory. Every time you make that difficult choice, you're casting a vote for the healthy, flourishing person you are actively becoming.
If we pull all these pieces together, the nervous system regulation, the rejection of a toxic normal, the daily micro-habits of truth, the synthesis of this material is just so powerful. Human flourishing is not about living without scars. The scars from betrayal are permanent. But flourishing is about choosing to live a full, meaningful, honest, and purposeful life, even after you've been wounded.
Infidelity might be a dark, painful chapter in your story, but you have the agency to ensure it does not become your entire identity. The framework we've explored today makes it clear that you can rewire your brain, you can establish new boundaries, and most importantly, you can learn to trust your own judgment again.
Whether your relationship is ultimately restored on a foundation of radical honesty, or your path takes you in a completely different independent direction, your healing is entirely possible. The capacity to flourish is still within you.
And we really want to speak directly to you, acknowledging the compassionate stance our source material takes right at its conclusion. You do not have to have everything figured out today.
No, definitely not.
The pressure to map out the rest of your life right now is a heavy, completely unnecessary burden. Give your nervous system the time it needs and give your healing the attention it deserves. Just focus on the next right step.
If betrayal is the earthquake, and flourishing is the daily habit of picking up bricks, you can't build a new house on a foundation of avoidance or illusions. You have to build it on the truth. So we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today, expanding on the reflection questions from our source text.
It's a question worth sitting with quietly, no matter where you currently are in your journey.
If flourishing is built on truth, and healing begins when we stop hiding, what is one specific truth about your own needs that you've been avoiding because it felt just too inconvenient or too scary to face? And what would happen if you picked up that brick and acknowledged it today?